Hi, I'm Draken, and this is part 2 of my tutorial about Cyber Dreadfalls. In this tutorial what I'm going to discuss is a couple of design principles as to when you're attaching your material into your hairband, and then we're going to go on to discuss attaching the actual Crin into the hair itself. If you've already seen part 1, and you already know I've already discussed a load of materials already, and now we're going to start actually getting into building them. So first of all, design principles. There are normally two main ideas when it comes to actually putting Cyber Dreadfalls into your hair. With the women, one very popular method is that they have pigtails which come out both sides of their hair, and they'll have their dreadfalls done in two separate lots. So you'd have two separate bits that are put on either side. So obviously you'd have two separate hairbands, and when you're attaching the material to hairbands, you put all the buoyant material on the top of the hairband, like the stuff like the Crin and the foam, which has quite a bit of buoyancy and spring in it, and anything that's going to be sort of heavier, like the ribbons, like the wool, that's going to flow freely downwards, then you put that at the bottom of the hairbands. That's important to remember, because at this stage, when you start attaching stuff to the hair, you've got to work out which way you're doing it. So if you're going for the sort of pigtail look of having one each side, then that's what you do. And just bear in mind, when you're doing the pigtail look as well, you want to try and balance it, so you try and mirror both sides to be identical to each other, so it doesn't, you've got the same amount of material both sides, and it's not going to look all silly and everything. So that's the female pigtail method. If you're doing it either as a bloke, because I don't know many blokes who will do it as a pigtail, but some women do it this way as well. Some people do it with a single top knot, or from the top there, so it all flows down as one fall at the top. Now with that, you can either put the items together in a very similar manner to like that on a single hairband if you haven't got a lot going on there. But I tend to find when you're doing it that method, you tend to have an awful lot going. So what I normally do is again use two hairbands. But one hairband holds all the stuff that's going to be heavier. For example, you see on this one that I'm working on at the moment, I've got all the rec lace on there, I've got the ribbons and stuff, and that's going to be the one which will lie on the bottom. And then you've got your top one, which will then be another hairband, which is going to contain all your Crin and all your foam as well that you're planning on putting on there as well. So that's the design principles in which you put behind it. So you've got to think before you start which way you're doing it. To say if you're a bloke, it's quite easy to do it that way. If it's female, you've got a choice of either way of doing it. Coming down to then to the Crin, we're going to discuss how to cut the Crin, how to look after the Crin, and also how to attach it into the hair as well. So we've taken a length of Crin, and what you need to first of all decide is how long you want your Crin. And how long you want your Crin is how long's a piece of string. A lot of people generally have it about this sort of length. So it's about a foot to a foot and a half long for each strand. I sometimes go a little bit more wild, and I'll have something that goes about 2 to 3 foot long on my ones. Important thing to remember then is then to measure out how long you want it on your strands of your Crin. Now be careful when you're playing with this stuff. Don't start stretching it and moving it around, because you will damage the Crin if you do that. Find how long you want. So say if you wanted a strand that long, and then double it, because we're going to attach it in the middle there, and that is where you're going to need to cut it. But when you come to cut it, give yourself about another couple of inches, because we're going to need that when we come to neating the ends up. Now what I find easier for myself to do is to actually try and maximise the use of each strand or each reel of Crin that you get. So instead of just measuring it out and cutting it down like that, what I do is I take the full length, work out roughly how much I want, and then I will fold it that number of times to get the amount that I want. So I'll show you what I mean now. From this one, I've worked out the size that I want roughly. I can probably get about 4 out of a single strand. So you lay it down, and you just very carefully move it around until you've got about equal distance. Doesn't matter if it's exact, because you tend to find with Cyber Dreadfalls all the Crin won't be exactly the same length, and it probably looks better if there's just a little bit of variance in the length anyway, rather than it all being sort of neatly cut off. So you find yourself approximately where it is. Be careful when you're stretching it out like that as well again, because you'll find that the Crin itself, because it stretches and it also shrinks and contracts, that you might have a length that's slightly longer or shorter because it's contracting here, but it's a little bit stretched there. So you just try and make sure that it's always stretched and contracted around the length itself. And then all you're going to do at that point is you're just going to cut with a pair of scissors where you need it to do. So we're just going to cut it at the points there, and that's now given us 4 strands that are going to become double strands when attached in the middle there like that. So the next stage then is obviously to do that with all the Crin that you want to use. Right, so what we're going to do at the next stage now is we're going to take our Crin, which you'll find you've cut the ends there, and it's going to be a little bit frayed at the ends because you've got bits of strands coming off. And not only is there just sort of bits of strands coming off there, but if you were to actually wear that in your hair, what would actually happen is after a time this will get more and more frayed, it'll get tugged at, and your Crin will get damaged. So what we're going to do to protect that is we're going to take the top inch and we're going to just take it and tuck it inside itself. So you just pop it inside there, and what that's going to do is it's going to create a nice sort of more straight edge there, which isn't going to fray apart or tear apart so easily, and takes the frayed end where you've just cut it and just tucks it away nice and neat for you. Once you've done that, and do it to both ends of your Crin, what you're going to do then is assemble it together with the rest of your Crin, and you're going to put it into bunches of about 3 to 5 pieces of Crin, like so. And with those, that's going to form then just one bunch that you're going to attach into your hairband that you would put together like that. Right, now you've arranged into bunches, what we're going to do next is we're going to thread it together and thread it onto the hairband itself. So you're going to take your bunch and you're going to hold it in the middle and just make sure that all your Crin is actually all sitting nice and even, both sides of the centre point there. If not, just pull it through slightly, and then you're going to pinch it all together so it becomes flat at the top there. It's the only time you really want to pinch your Crin is when you're going to be attaching it at the top. And then you're going to take your needle and thread and you're just going to thread it through the actual Crin itself and put a nice length through there, and then wrap it around the Crin, obviously without getting anything tangled up in it. If it does, just pull it out. So that just holds it nice together, and then carry on doing that. So thread it through, trying to catch as much of the Crin when you're threading through as possible, and then wrapping it around, and then thread it again. And you're going to do this a couple of times just to basically get the Crin to hold together itself. And then once you've done it a couple of times, you take your hairband, or your bobble, as it's like to be known in some parts of Wales, named for that famous place by Rob Gilbert, known as Clan Bobble, and you will put the hairband in there, and then you'll just start threading the hairband with the rest of the Crin itself, attaching it through and wrapping it around the Crin, and also just wrapping it around the bobble itself. So you can see you're going through the Crin and around the Crin, and you want to do this about 20 odd times just to make sure you've got a good hold on it. Right, once you've done that a number of times around the actual hair bobble, so that now the Crin and the hair bobble are nicely secured together, all you're going to do is just tie off your thread and just tie it in a couple of times. I tend to do it about 3 or 4 times just to make sure you've got a nice strong knot as well at the end. And then just snip the end of the thread off, and you now have attached to your hair bobble a bunch of Crin. So what you do then at this stage is then you're going to repeat it with all of the Crin that you've got. In this case I'm doing a set for a woman, so I'm going to be doing it across 2 bobbles, and I'll be evenly spacing it across both those bobbles. Once you've attached all the Crin then onto your bobbles, then what you'll have is obviously a fall like that, and this actually is just 2 bunches on that side, and obviously it's been done for female, so you've got 2 bunches on the other side as well. If you're doing this for a single point where it was just coming off the centre of the head, then obviously you would attach it all into a single band, and you'd have basically that much coming off the back there. And that's just done with 3 lots of the thick Crin, 1 medium Crin and 1 thin Crin. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask, but that's the end of this tutorial, and I'll be back soon with the next tutorial to explain how to do the woolen braids and how to attach things like rec lace and ribbon into the hairband as well. Thank you.